Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier On Air. This is the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have a very good friend of mine, Ilija Vrajich. Ilija, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm happy to be here. I've always been on the other side listening, so this is awesome to be on this side.
Well, good. We're happy to have you. This is an episode that I'm kind of very excited about because you're kind of in a transition here with your personal life, with the business. And I want to get our audience involved in this. I want them to know who you are, what you're doing. So to introduce you, you're the co-founder of Alcomy.
Yep, that's right.
Talk about Alcomy. Let's paint the picture.
Yeah, so Alcomy is an employee management solution for the long-term care space. My family and I, we spent 18 years in the industry in assisted living, owned and operated a couple facilities in California, and last year we sold. And this has been an idea. It's been a product that we've needed in our industry. But I was never able to find it for ourselves, and so years ago we started messing around with it and trying to build something. And so we got to the point now where we're looking forward to launching in January, February. We're hoping so.
Yeah, so you're coming up with a solution for something that you've needed in the past. I mean,
Yes.
your history, your career has been in the assisted living facility world.
Yep.
And having some headaches, I'm assuming some sleepless nights because of this problem that you're trying to solve, kind of give you the ability to know the ins and outs of all of it. Tell us about the pain points in assisted living facility management.
So in the management of facilities, I mean, it's a 24/7 business. So that even
hard business,
even
right?
of it, oh yeah, in and of itself, 24-hour, 24/7. It's just really difficult to stay on top of all the things that you have to manage. I mean, whether you're a small little 10-bed facility or you're a 100-bed facility, even in a 10-bed facility, you're talking about usually 10 employees. You're talking about 10 residents. You're talking about probably 3 or 4 doctors and probably 6 or 7 nurses. And there's all these different demands, and each particular resident has a different need that they need to take care of. And so it's hard to keep track of. And then one of the big problems in the industry is high turnover, right? It's just one of those positions that just has a lot of turnover.
High turnover with patients or with employees?
With employees. Huh? So usually it's CNAs, or they call them caregivers, will be the ones taking care of the residents, and you're trying to make sure which staff knows what about who, and just a small example of that is you might have a particular resident that their dentures get taken out on Tuesdays and Thursdays only, and you have another resident whose dentures get taken out every single day, and it kind of depends and it changes. And so keeping track of all that with a new staff, every few months becomes very, very difficult. And so we aim to solve that. That's just one of them, but we aim to solve that.
Sure. And so let's talk about where you came from California. That's where you ran a lot of these facilities.
Yeah.
Doing that for a few years.
Yeah. So if we go back in the day, my parents originally started, it was Paradise Valley Care was the facility in California. It was just a little 4-bed facility, and they eventually grew it to 10. And then I went off to school, I was at Brigham Young University, and originally I wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon. Once I was in those kind of classes, I realized I do not want to do the same thing for the rest of my life. Yeah. And so I ended up switching over to entrepreneurship. And when I came back to California, I got more heavily involved in the business. Me and my wife ended up opening up our own location. And then we became partners with my parents, and we grew that one from a 10-bed to a 15-bed. And then we also did in-home care. And so that's kind of how I got involved in facilities in California. But yeah.
So I can't imagine what that must have been like to run a business like that, right? Again, 24/7. High stress, right? In my business, if we screw up, nobody's going to die for the most part. Nobody's going to be hurt, right? So we miss a deadline, an event doesn't go as planned, all that stuff. If you screw up, I mean, it's serious.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's lots of liability issues, of course. But yeah, I mean, one of the big things is when you screw up, you've got family members really pissed off at you. Yeah. And it's really, really stressful, and you're constantly worried about, did I tell this particular employee to make sure that they do this with this resident, right? Did she tell the next one? And so the communication becomes very, very sticky, and the accountability is kind of off because you don't know who knows what and who's doing what sometimes. And so So yeah, it's very, 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 very stressful.
And so now what about?
In fact, I gained 70 pounds
Did you
doing
really?
that business. Yeah.
Because of the stress.
Because of the stress. Yeah. I'm a stress eater.
Let's talk about the fact that not only is that stressful, right? All the pressure, but now you're working with your wife and your parents.
Yes.
Right. I mean, for some people, I'm assuming that might be something that they look forward to, or something that would be a dream job. But for a lot of people, as much as we love our spouses, as much as we love our parents, being in business with family can be very, very difficult. What was that experience like for you?
It was hard. There was obviously some awesome moments with it because, family, especially in that kind of line of work, you're looking for people who are loyal and who you can trust. And of course, with family, at least in our case, you can't trust anybody more than family. I mean, very, very loyal. And so, yeah, there was lots of ups and lots of downs. So the dynamic was I was partners with my parents. And then I had a brother who, for 4.5 years, worked for us. He was our administrator, so I was his boss essentially.
Yeah. Is that
weird? It was weird, but it was weird when it came down to having to correct. Yeah. Right, that was the hard part because you knew you had to do it, but then at the same time, you wanted to be gentle. But for the most part, working with family was all right. But of course, I mean, I'm part Yugoslavian, part Puerto Rican, and so if you know those two nationalities, we're loud.
Yeah.
Okay, and so in my family, there was lots of yelling, and we get opinionated on things. But at the end of the day, we love each other and we move on. I think that's also we made it work. So yeah.
So 70 pounds later, ups and downs with family, business. You decide to sell in California.
That's right. Yeah.
And knowing you, right, and we've had these discussions before, and you're in my mastermind group, a weekly call that we have with a few other entrepreneurs. I was kind of part of the journey, I felt like, with you when it came to selling the business.
Yeah.
Just because that didn't run smooth either. I mean, that was high stress stuff. So talk about some of the not missteps, but just things that happen when you're selling a business, right? Any little thing can kind of tweak the whole thing and kind of make it more stressful, longer than it should be.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience.
So selling a facility is selling any business is hard, right? Because you're dealing with financials and people have to kind of take a look at things, and the due diligence process is a lot longer. But now you take that and you multiply that by 10 or 100 when it comes to now you're dealing with regulations and stuff like that. And so it was very stressful because we didn't know when, we'd already moved out to St. George, and we really wanted it to be, obviously we wanted to go fast. But it actually went well, except for once we got the new owners that were going to come in, there was just scary moments that you just never been through. So one of the first ones that I can think of is when, we have to announce and tell our residents at the time that we're selling. Mm-hmm. And so you're nervous at that point because you're hoping that they have enough faith in what you're doing that you're picking somebody that's going to do well,
sure.
And that they're not just going to up and leave. And so that was kind of some of the fears in the beginning, was like, oh shoot, we got to tell these residents, and we don't know if they're going to just yank everybody out, and then we could end up with an empty facility. Luckily, that wasn't the case, and the family that we found that came and took over is a great family. They're a caring family, but there was bumps along the way in terms of their financing and different things like that just came up at the last minute. And so originally we were supposed to close on, I think, June 1st, and we didn't end up closing till July 27th of last year. And so I was in California from June 1st to the 27th, and I didn't see my family for the most part of that.
Yeah, trying to close the deal.
Yeah.
That's that's being committed, right? I mean,
yeah.
you need to make sure that it works, or else it's going to leave you guys in a bad spot.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people selling their businesses, and they have it's kind of like your baby. I mean, we were in it for 18 years. Obviously, my parents were in it longer than I was, but I remember when I was one of the first employees at the company, and so it is kind of your baby, and you want to make sure that it passes on to right hands. And so there's that stress too. You don't want that facility your business just to crumble after you leave. You want that to continue to go, and so that there was nerve-wracking around all that.
I bet. Yeah, and so now you're completely out.
Yeah, now we're out.
Right. So now you have an idea to help, like we discussed earlier, to help this.
Yeah.
The other facility management owners, right?
So kind of what happened was as I got full time into facility, like when we opened our facility in 2009 and we went full into operating, I just found there was a lot of inefficiencies. I'm a real efficiency nut. I love.
It feels like an old school type of.
Yes, it very much
mentality.
is. Yeah. In fact, as we started doing more research for Alcomy, we found that 76% of all facilities still run a paper-based system.
That's huge.
And that is huge. And we didn't just take that as word. We actually called about 60 facilities, and that was the question we asked: what are you using? And it came out to be that exact number. But the point is that there was just a lot of inefficiencies, and so I started to build kind of the beginning versions of Alcomy, at our facility, and I started to see that some of the stuff, the redundancies, were being now eliminated. So in those beginning days, some of the stuff that used to take 45 minutes to do, we reduced it down to 20 minutes, and so that's a big deal. And then later, just before we left, we'd reduce it down to 5 minutes because of some of the stuff that we were doing. And so that was kind of the beginning stages of Alcomy and moving forward with it. And it became apparent that there was no way if doing this company was what we were going to do, we couldn't do it and also have a facility because of kind of what we talked about, the demands that are always there. And so we decided that it was time to sell and really go full in on Alcomy.
Yeah, and go all in.
Go all in, because I really felt like we could do more by helping the industry, by providing the software, than we could by being in the industry trying to change it from within. So,
and again, knowing you and being close to this whole process for the last feels like a year and a half, 2 years maybe. I mean, it's been a little while.
Yeah.
I know that the hard work that you've put into this new company, Alcomy, and the things that you're trying to do there. You're following the lean startup method, where you're not only are you didn't start out trying to build it and then say, hey, here it is, come and take it. I mean, you actually interviewed a lot of these business owners and heard what they had to say and what they were concerned about and what they wanted. And so, I mean, just that alone is huge. And, and it took up a little bit of a good chunk of time, too.
Yeah, it took a lot of time, and we were doing that right. So kind of going back just a little bit, when we got the offer, when we put the house up for sale, or we put the facility up for sale, that's exactly when I was doing the validation interviews. So I was juggling two of them. In fact, I remember the day I was down in Las Vegas doing validation interviews, and I got the call that said we have an offer, and I was reviewing the offer in this parking lot with my wife, because she was with me. But yeah, we've kind of, so I graduated from BYU back in 2007. My brother, who's my co-founder, he's my CTO, he graduated in 2013, I believe it was. And so the whole lean startup process or methodology came about, I think, in 2011. And so he had gotten this new age of entrepreneurship, and I was stuck in the old age. And so as we were kind of building the software, he was talking about validation, and I said, well, we don't need to validate because I'm in the industry, and I didn't kind of understand that. But luckily, it was actually, I credit you and what you were doing with Founders Weekend, because there was one day I was kind of figuring out where we were going to do how we were going to move forward with this software idea, and I happened to be scrolling Instagram and saw that there was a pitch competition in St. George, and I thought to myself, St. George? Like, St. George's got a pitch competition? And then I looked and saw who it was. So John Richards was there, and Pete Capital, all those guys.
Somebody who's become a
mentor,
a mentor,
yeah. And that's really where we pitched there. We won. We got third place there, and that kind of reconnected me with John. He was a professor of mine up at BYU, but obviously lost contact. And then that's when I found out about the Startup Ignition program, and it just felt like I had to do that. And that was actually a very, very difficult, both financial time, and it was a difficult time for our family, simply because my wife was pregnant with our fifth kid at the time. And so I felt so strongly that we needed to stop moving forward on the stuff that we were doing for Alcomy, to take a step back and learn to do it right. Because I've done other companies besides this, both good and bad, and I learned that I wanted to do it the right way, and felt very strongly that Startup Ignition. So Startup Ignition at the time, they didn't have an express, so I had to. This was going to require me leaving my wife.
Yeah, and real quick, Startup Ignition, kind of a boot camp for entrepreneurs, hosted by John Richards, mentor of ours, I believe. He has this boot camp that usually lasts, what was it, 13 weeks or something like that?
13 weeks, yeah.
Twice a week, you'd meet for a few hours.
Mondays and Wednesdays up in Provo, which is about a 4-hour drive.
And so you being in St. George, you would have to drive out there and sometimes stay overnight quite a bit, right? So that was dedication on its own. We invited him down here. He did an express boot camp, 2 full days.
Yeah.
It was nonstop, like good information.
Yeah.
And again, it was there were some serial entrepreneurs in that group that's for that class, the boot camp that we held, but still so much good information that a lot of these guys who have started a lot of successful businesses were still able to learn a lot. And you and I learned quite a bit from just from that class as well. And so that I kind of helped you, it feels like, with the process now that you're in.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was really life-changing, and is what set the path for us to kind of really solidify what we were doing and hone down. And so as I did that course, I left my wife with a 2-week-old to drive north. We ended up learning those principles and started putting them in practice and started interviewing people. And it was awesome because we didn't have to pivot, but it just solidified that we were on the right track, which as an entrepreneur is always nice to have, And so we set out to start interviewing as many as we could, and up to this point we've interviewed, I think we're well over 60 in 6 different states,
which is huge. I mean, just the information that alone from those interviews can take you a long way in building what they want and what they would pay for, right? As opposed to guessing what you think they're going to want.
Right. I mean, there's obviously, in my thinking, that as an entrepreneur, at least in my mind, there's been times where it's like, oh my gosh, is this really going to work? Should we really do this? Even though I believe in it, right? There's doubts that creep in naturally. But that was what solidified it. So going back to those people that we interviewed, they liked it so much. We, following the counsel of mentor John, we went back and talked to these facilities, and we landed pre-sales contracts. So we have pre-sales contracts from facilities who have written us voided checks and signed that we will buy this when it comes out,
and that's fantastic.
Before we even have the product. I mean, that's no better validation than that. All
right, let's talk about the product, Alcomy, the company, right? You're gonna provide, you're gonna help these facilities.
Yeah.
What I like about this, and I mean, there's so many things that I like about this. It's not a sexy industry, right?
No.
But still can be a very lucrative one.
Yeah.
And it's one that you can obviously, you've been in it. You can see some of the things that you can help with. But you've teamed up with your brother, right?
Yeah.
So again, the working with family can be difficult, but it seems like you guys have a good rhythm, a good sense of your talents and his talents, and being able to kind of manage those. He recently quit a good job, right, to do this full time.
Yep.
Let's talk about you for a sec.
Sure.
You recently announced to me and the rest of your friends and some that aren't very happy with you right now.
I've got a lot of people not happy with me right now, actually.
You live here in Southern Utah with us, right? Great place to raise family, all that good stuff. You recently announced that you're going to sell your house, move up north, to be with your brother and help with all this, and not because Salt Lake or up north is calling your name for anything other than it's going to make it easier for the company.
Right.
So you're leaving the comforts of home, literally, to go up there and be all in for the company.
That's true. Yeah. So that's an interesting. That's another step in my life as an entrepreneur, right?
And it felt like it was overnight almost. I mean, maybe you guys have been talking about it and thinking about it for a long time, but to me, you were just like, oh yeah, we're moving. Tell us about that process.
Okay, so this is recent, right? So this was just a couple weeks ago. I kind of had feelings. I mean, we love St. George. I have to start there. We absolutely love it here, and it's been great for our family. And we hoped to build a tech company here. My brother obviously is up in the Provo area, and there was always kind of little inklings that, oh man, it would be easier, it would be better, more resources to move north. But I kind of fought against that. Didn't really want that because again, I loved it down here.
Yeah, let's paint the picture for those that aren't familiar with Utah, right? We're in Southern Utah, St. George, total, right, with the surrounding areas, maybe 120,000 population. Yeah. Up north, Salt Lake, Provo, right, Ogden, all that area.
Yeah, anything big like Vegas is 2 hours away, and Provo, which is the next big city, is 4 hours away, 3.5.
And it's booming. For those that know the area up there, a lot of tech, a lot of money, right? A lot of VCs, a lot of resources, other employees that you can tap into. Just very talented people.
Yeah,
St. George is a great place, but it's still kind of the step.
Yeah, they're trying to get there. I think eventually they will be, and I think there's a couple people that said that St. George is kind of what Provo was 15 years ago or whatever. So I think it has the potential to
But
get
you can't
there.
wait.
I just can't wait. Yeah.
So tell us about that move and what it was like to try to convince the wife and the rest
So
of the family.
so we started. It's funny. It was a Monday. We were talking. There was no inclination that we were moving. Then Tuesday, we had a meeting and we kind of were talking, and the feeling just said we need to move north. And it was something that was like, it just kept growing throughout the day. And then my wife, she went on a run with a friend, I think Wednesday morning, and she just had a very strong impression that, that's what we're supposed to do. In fact, she came home. Actually, she was running and crying, and her friend's like, "What's going on?" And so then she came home, and we kind of kept talking about it, and we moved. Something's buzzing over here. We moved forward with the idea. Oh, let me. Sorry. So, sorry, I got off track here. Where was I?
The wife was running.
Oh yeah, so she went running, and she kind of, for her, it was like she never really wanted to move, and so then we started talking to our neighbors, our real estate agents. We talked to them, and we were actually kind of thinking like maybe we do it in October or something like that. And they talked to them and they said, well, if you're going to sell, the best time is now. This was a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
I remember getting a call from them at like, it was 10:30 at night. I was in bed, and I was like, oh shoot. I knew that we were going to have to make a decision in the next couple of days. And so, me and my wife, we ended up praying about it, kind of pondering over the next couple of days. And that Friday, we had gotten such a strong impression that that's what we were to do. As crazy as it was, to leave all this, we knew that it was the right decision. And so, so we decided, and we immediately went and told my parents. My parents were the first ones that I
Your parents here in St. George?
Yeah, they just built a house a mile from me. So,
and now you're telling them, hey,
and now I'm telling them I'm leaving, right?
And they've lived
they've lived close to my grandkids, my kids for the entire time that they've been alive. So, so that was a hard.
These are difficult
I couldn't tell them.
decisions.
My wife had to tell them. I was just in tears.
Really?
Yeah, it was that bad. And then we went and told our kids later that night, and they were not happy with us. Neighbors are not happy with us. Nobody's happy.
Yeah.
With
but
me.
You have to do what you have to do in order to not just provide for the family, but to build this company, this great idea that you have into reality.
Yeah, and the thing is that as I looked at it, I know that if I didn't do this, I'd kick myself.
Yeah,
I would regret it later. And so, everything in my entrepreneurial journey up to this point has been to get to this point to build a tech company. And I've kind of gone the sideways way by being in the assisted living world. But everything that I've worked for is to this moment. If I don't take advantage of it now, then I've wasted it, and I will regret it later. Even if Alcomy doesn't take off and doesn't work, I have to do this. Sure. And so that's the calling that's like, and the other thing is if I'm going to do it, I want to do it the best place possible. And so, if you're going to plant a garden, you're going to plant seeds in the best soil. And unfortunately, or fortunately, Provo's got just better soil than St. George, in my opinion, for now.
Sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I don't think anybody would argue that.
Yeah.
But what I like is that you're going all in. You have a large family, right?
Yep.
5 little kids.
Yeah.
A beautiful home, a lot of friends. I mean, your life here has been great the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
You can leave the home, move into a basement for a little while while you kind of get your feet on the ground up there.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like big things, and we've had this discussion before. That, right? I think everybody in our mastermind group, all the friends that we have in common. I think they're all like excited for you, proud of you, right? All that good stuff. And you and I have talked about this. Even if it doesn't work out, right? Even if this company doesn't work out, I think you're going to be okay. I know you're going to be okay because now you're going to be up in northern Utah, where there are plenty of opportunities for somebody with your talents, right? So again, even if the company doesn't work, it's going to be okay for you and the family. But the fact that you're taking a swing at this is a lot more than a lot of people can say, right? I mean, you believe in this so much that you're like, I'm all in. I'm taking everything with me.
Yeah, I have to,
and I'm going to do it. And if it works, what a great story.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, what a great story.
Then we're back to the drawing board.
That's right.
We start over.
I'm just thinking about the legacy that you're going to leave with the kids.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're old enough for the most part to be like, yeah, I remember when we kind of packed it all up and left, and my dad did this, and again, it worked or it didn't work, but he took a chance on a dream. that's just going to help them, I think, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because literally this morning, me and my wife were on a walk. That seems, with 5 kids, that's the only way we can actually talk to each other. And we were talking about just that. She's doing a couple things that she's been passionate about doing for a long time, and so she was just telling me this morning. She's like, I feel like for the first time we're actually living everything that we say, right? Living the way that you want, doing the things that makes you excited, and not just taking a job or doing whatever just because that's what you're supposed to do. But we're actually doing things that we're both passionate about, and so that's totally true. Like that's where it lies for me is really doing this is what I want to do. So you got to make sacrifices
with everything that you've done, everything that you're doing now. If you had to pinpoint something as to the success that you've had this far, I mean, what are you the best at, right? I mean, if you had to pick one thing, what would that be?
If I had to pick one thing, I think I'm the visionary. That's kind of my thing is I kind of see where we need to go and how everything coordinates in terms of being efficient with our time. I think that's kind of where my talents really, really lie. When I get down deep into like the doing of things, I get a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But staying up high level and seeing where we're going and painting that picture, I think that's more that's definitely one of my talents.
Yeah, I think you and I are similar in that way for sure, right? Where when it comes to the details, I'm like, not only do I not want to do it, right, but it's just not fun. I mean,
I realize that
I struggle with.
people are, they say, surround yourself with people who are better than you. Like that's totally true. I know that. I know what I want. I know what I want to happen. But there's people that are way more talented than me that can do things. I mean, that's a large reason why my brother's on board. I mean, he is my brother, but he's not on because he's just family and he's the only guy I could find. Like, he truly is talented in areas that I don't have the skill set in. Obviously, in coding and in design, he has that ability to do that and loves that kind of stuff. And so yeah.
So when we have you back on the show in 3 years, what are we going to be talking about?
Hopefully, we're talking about Alcomy is really revolutionized the long-term care space. That we're a great company to work for. People love working for us, and we can take something that's not so sexy in terms of the industry and make it sexy. So
nice.
Yeah.
So for those that are interested, that have heard the story, right, that are interested in you personally, or the story, all that good stuff, the new software, the new company that you're trying to build, where can we find you online?
So yeah, I'm on all the platforms. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. So yeah, hit me up. I'm on LinkedIn. So I like to, recently I've been on this kick of really trying to not just connect with people via Facebook, but actually maybe take it offline, call them on the phone and find out who they really are. I think that's where the magic lies.
Agreed.
So yeah, hit me up on all those different channels if you're interested in what we're doing. Yeah, we'll be glad to connect. Good.
So Outliers, you can go to outlierhq.com. That's outlierhq.com. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review it, share it with your friends. But there we're going to have links to Ilija's websites, to social media accounts. Reach out to him. He's the real deal. He's all in. It's going to be a wild ride, no matter where and how it ends. And we're going to be talking about it in 3 years. But Ilija, again, we appreciate you being on the show. This has been great getting to introduce you to our audience and the great story that you have. And obviously, we wish you nothing but success.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. This has been fun. So
Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.